complete small-scale projects.
Okay, we'll do one more question and then we'll switch out.
How has your experience as a collegiate athlete prepared you for the position?
I think I was a collegiate athlete. I was a Division I swimmer. I swam for a all-women's college in Atlanta, Agnes Scott College, and it was a small team, but we were a very dedicated team. And I, as captain of that team my junior year, I really helped to bring the team together, all different abilities to compete at the Division III championships together. Unfortunately, my senior year, that team was cut, so it was nice that we had that experience before the team was cut in 2009 because of the recession.
So, Ms. Hamilton, how does your experience in your nonprofit organizations, how has that prepared you for City Council?
So I'm lucky enough to have participated in a variety of different organizations all over the country. When I worked for the Long Beach Nonprofit Partnership in California, they functioned as a Chamber of Commerce organization, and so that really demonstrated how multiple organizations with the same goal can work together and share resources, and I think that's a critical element to local government. We have to share resources.
What was your biggest hurdle you have experienced as a woman running in the position you're going for right now that's mainly dominated by men?
So I actually work in commercial real estate now, which is a male-dominated industry, so I've certainly learned how to have confidence in myself and my own abilities and believe that even though I might be the youngest person in the room or the only female in the room, that my ideas still matter and they're probably the best ones.
How would you improve working conditions for women in the field?
I think just overall support for organizations that support women, such as Planned Parenthood. They offer a lot of resources to women to lift them up and have them be equals and have an equal place at the table.
So as far as leadership goes, obviously this is a position that requires you to be a strong leader. What qualities do you think you possess make you a strong leader, and which of those qualities transfers over well to the position and better than others might?
Sure. So I am always a leader in whatever I do naturally because I want to succeed, and I typically am working, for a nonprofit organization or for the betterment of a certain area of my community, and so there's no choice. You cannot fail. Failure is not an option. So I typically tend to take the lead in any given situation I'm in order to create success, and I think that is my mentality in everything I do, and I think that would carry over well into being a government official.
Okay. According to your LinkedIn profile, you speak Spanish. How do you feel about the increased Spanish population?
Un poquito español. I think it's a great asset to the community, and I think the more we interact with each other and the more we share our resources and create a place where all of us can live and thrive, the better our community will be for it.
So as one of the groups pointed out before, Governor Cuomo was in Buffalo yesterday pushing for an increase in minimum wage. So what is your take on the minimum wage in New York State, and do you believe that it should be changed?
I think income inequality is a very important issue that we have to focus on here as we create policy and move forward. Income inequality has increased drastically in the last couple decades here in the United States, and so I think we have to be extremely creative in our policy creation to address that, and I think there's lots of different avenues we could take to do so.
Our last question, what advice and recommendations do you have for any students that are aspiring to become involved in government?
Just do it. Just reach out, bug people until they listen to you, and volunteer. Just jump in with 2 feet and you'll be surprised where you end up.
Hi, my name is Keena Jackson. I'm running for State Senate. I'm running for State Senate because I believe the State Senate needs some new faces, faces that embrace technology, those that are going to invest in education because that is important, and also invest in community development. I have a degree in government and sociology from Cornell University, and I've also spent the last 4 years working directly for a state senator. In that position as a caseworker, I had the opportunity to work directly with constituents every day and help folks with their issues. And I think as a public servant, it's our job to serve. So that is why I'm running for state senate.
Ms. Jackson, Governor Cuomo was in Buffalo yesterday campaigning for a raise in the minimum wage. What is your position on raising the minimum wage, and do you think it will benefit or hinder economic growth in the state?
Well, many states that have raised the minimum wage haven't seen very many businesses leave the state because they raised it. Also, a family of four, a mother making only $8 an hour will only bring home $320 a week. That is not enough to take care of a family. Many of our households in Buffalo are single-family households, and we should be thinking of those when we put those folks when we're thinking about legislation. So I think it's important that we raise the minimum wage and to give our families the opportunity to lift themselves up from poverty.
You said that there weren't that many businesses that actually left the state due to a raise in minimum wage. But what about the number of businesses that have shut down because they can't afford the cost of paying their employees that much higher of a wage?
Well, I understand that, and I think honestly those businesses who are having some difficulty meeting the minimum wage, may have had some, may have been in some rocky times for a while now. Not all, but some may. And we understand that. We understand that New York needs to be favorable to businesses, but our families come first, and we really want to give our low-income families the opportunity to support themselves.
And during the Senate race you worked on in 2014, Senator Kennedy asserted that his opponent, Grant, recruited a third candidate to join the race and help them gain a spot on the ballot and to steal votes away from Kennedy. How did this change the way the campaign was run, and how did you adapt to these changes?
Well, in politics, you learn not to give up all of your secrets in one TV interview. However, did it change the momentum of our race? It definitely did. Having a third person enter the race definitely would have had an effect on the numbers. However, I think that the senator was, poised and ready for a hard battle throughout that campaign. I think that he ran a campaign that, he went to the people, he knocked on doors, and he made sure people knew what the issues were. And I think any candidate that does that is going to be a successful candidate. So, just work hard and stick to the issues, and all of the politics and politicking that occurs in this game will be null and void.
Recently, the New York State Assembly Speaker was charged with secretly accepting around $4 million worth of payoffs for over a decade while he was employed in public office. Amidst this scandal, he resigned his position as a speaker but refused to step down from his seat on the Assembly itself. Seeing as how you intend to run for a seat in New York's 60th District, how do you feel the corruption charges affect the integrity of the Assembly? How do you feel about the office and the party itself? How do you feel that affects?
Well, listen, any corruption definitely puts a negative light on politicians and on government officials. It definitely tarnishes the public trust. And I agree with the state, the governor, and the assembly when it comes to changing the financial disclosure laws and the campaign disclosure laws. I think we should disclose who our clients are when we're lawyers and when we're getting money on the side. So I do believe that it's important for us to have stronger financial and campaign disclosure because of the assembly members' case. I mean, we should be able to trust our government officials.
But do you feel that these charges specifically affect the integrity of the party, the Democratic Party, that would kind of so voters would not want to so much vote for the Democratic Party in a sense because of this scandal?
I think it does hurt. It definitely hurts. And I understand why voters are apprehensive to get engaged in a political process. But the more and more we're engaged, the more and more we vote, the better chances of us picking legislators that represent our value set. when only, they voted for Mr. Silver for over 25 years. So they felt that he was doing a good job representing his district. It's just important that the voters have all the information up front. And if we would have, if it would have came out 10 years ago that he was accepting this money, he wouldn't have sat in that office for another 10 years. So it's important for us to change those laws.
And during the 2014 the Senate campaign, you said that you crafted and implemented a plan that tripled the voting percentage in targeted communities in 18 months. Can you explain some of the details about the plan and how it worked? And do you plan to use a similar plan in future campaigns?
Well, what I learned working with the senator and his staff over the last 4 years and on various campaigns is they're different. Each one is different. And you definitely have to cater your campaign based on the voter, those who are going to be voting for you. So I think that is an important tool that we learned on our own, but I also think that is a tool in government and politics that we've seen used even on the national race for president. There was Obama for women and Obama for the LGBT community. He knew how to cater the campaign to have he knew how to cater the campaign to those cohort groups. And I think that's important. That's going to be the way you win campaigns moving forward.
And you said there's a lot of single families living in Buffalo. Is that one of the targeted communities you want to continue to target and get your voice out to them and make sure they understand what they're going through and everything?
Women vote, and a lot of those single families are female head families. So it's very important that we get the information out to those voters. They're raising children. And we need to make sure that they know that the person that they're voting for is going to make sure the resources that are important to their family is coming their way.
Okay, let's do one more question.
All right. Within the past 5 years, there's been an unprecedented change in the marijuana policy throughout the United States. The current incumbent in the district you would run for, Mark Panapinto, he has voted in favor of passing the New York CARE Act, which is a bill aimed at legalizing medical marijuana for very severe cases throughout New York State. And actually, Bill de Blasio was on the Nightly Show on Monday night and was kind of asked a similar question and said that he had no plans for actual legalization of marijuana in the future. But this bill provides very narrow specs of what's actually allowed and still actually bans the actual process of smoking the marijuana. So even though these people are allowed to have it for medical purposes, you're still not allowed to smoke it. So if elected, how would you vote on a bill that maybe looked to extend the very narrow boundaries of this CARE Act?
Well, I would vote for the New York CARE Act. I do believe that in those instances where medical marijuana can help someone who has a diagnosis that needs it, I think that's important that they have access to it. The same with cancer patients and any other medical situation that makes marijuana warranted. If you're asking if I believe in expanded marijuana regulations in the state past medical, I would consider it. Yes, I would.
All right. Thank you very much.
This past Monday, teachers in Albany rallied against Governor Cuomo and his education policies. Having worked with the youth in Lackawanna, what are your positions on his education policy and how it will affect children, and what are some things that you would maybe change?
Well, right now the governor is pushing for tougher teacher evaluations, which I think is important, especially in a city like Lackawanna. We have a history of patronage in our city, and I believe that teachers are the crux of our communities. They're raising our young people. So it's important that we have the best and brightest in those roles. So I think that it's important that we are putting the necessary protocols in place to make sure our children are getting educated by the best. So I agree with many of the governor's proposals on teacher reforms.
Senator Panapinto had voted on 8 bills concerning having to do with improving women's rights, including ensuring pay, prohibiting sexual harassment, and numerous bills aimed at reducing discrimination. How do you feel do you feel like these bills are enough or that society needs to start making more changes? our world?
Well, I think the bills are a good step. I am in support of all 10 points of the Women's Equality Act. I believe that, the state has some work to do. The state has some work to do, and I think it will start with getting more women elected to office. When when the majority of the legislature is controlled by men, women's issues are not they're not in the forefront of their minds. So with more women elected to office, we'll see a lot more change in that area.
Perfect. From your experience as a member of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals, do you think it would be beneficial to start a similar program aimed towards high school and university students with the intent of getting them involved earlier on, and why or why not?
I definitely think the more organizations that help young people participate in their communities or in the civic process are important. I think that the young professionals provide access and opportunities for young people like myself to work on community service projects, to get information or just more knowledge in regards to issues like education or what's going on in our communities. So I think organizations like the Young Professionals being expanded to high school students is great. When I was in high school, I was originally going to college as pre-med. So I was in a program called Med Step, Biomedical Step at the University at Buffalo. And that opened my eyes to medicine in so many different ways that I walked into college ready and able to be a doctor. Now, I took my first semester of chem and completely changed my mind. However, I just think that I had the opportunity to decide early on whether or not medicine was going to be for me, and that program allowed me to do so. So I think it's important.
Great.
You said in your earlier speech that you're a public servant. So what does it mean to be a public servant? And as a woman in power, do you already feel that you're starting at a disadvantage, or that you feel as a woman coming into campaigning to be a senator, do you feel like you're going to be an outlier?
Well, in Buffalo, no, I'm definitely not an outlier. There are a ton of women already in leadership positions in Buffalo, including Chair Betty Jean Grant and Assemblywoman Crystal People-Stokes. So I had the opportunity to work with women that are already in positions of leadership and power in my own communities.